Some people are bigger than life. They may not be the most popular, successful, rich. They may not be a politician or a media influencer, to use today's terms. They could be bigger than life just because they are unique in who they are, even if they may only influence a small and very specific group of people. The thing is that they do leave a long, lasting impression on the people who come across them. They could be people who plow through life's niggling issues to achieve their specific goals and objectives. Maybe it is their independence from outside influence what makes them special, that give no hex attitude. But it is also about what motivates them, like keeping alive a time in recent motorcycling history some of us romanticize about. It doesn't matter how much they accomplished or if they are only admired by a few people. At the end of the day, what matters is that, for us, from our perspective, they are bigger than life. I'm talking here about Jim Robb, a local legend originally from England and then established in California before moving to Coos Bay, Oregon, and eventually establishing his shop here in the south of the Willamette Valley in Oregon. Jim had a genuine way of interpreting motorcycles, and he stuck with his guns. He kept alive the time when people built and raced their own motorcycles, a time that belongs to when he was a young lad growing up in England. This is about a farewell to him, who was born in 1934 and passed away almost 90 years later in January of 2024. I'm meeting three of Jim's friends, Doug, Carl, and Louie, to attend his memorial at the Teepee Village. I picked the Triumph Tiger for this 25-mile trip just because it is English, although I would never imagine Jim Robb paying attention to an adventure motorcycle, even less one with traction control and ABS. But it is a Triumph, it is an English brand, and my 2012 model was made in England. His memorial is at the Teepee Village, which, by coincidence, was when I saw Jim for the first time 16 years ago in 2008 at a Teepee Two-Tower event. But I really met Jim only 3 years ago, in 2021, when I visited him with Doug and Carl at his shop, when I recorded his description of a very special motorcycle build, a 1960s Ducati motor attached to a unique frame designed by him.
I don't promise that I actually invented the whole idea, but what I did do though was put the stresses in a sensible order, so that's why this bracket on the top tube allows a certain amount of flexure in the whole product, but it's controlled.
Right.
It's a kind of a torque wrench type thing.
Yeah.
And that's the secret of the whole time, because what it amounts to is it's two basic triangles stacked on top of each other, and one complements the other, and you have to have them joined together, otherwise the thing will whip around.
Besides these two events, what I know of him is what I've been hearing about him through the vintage motorcycle community. Therefore, to his family and friends, the people who worked with him, the people who knew him well, I ask you to correct anything I may misstate about Jim in this video, and please feel free to contribute with more information about Jim in the comment section of this video. Ken Freubig of the Teepee Village, a motorcycle enthusiast who knew Jim Robb, was very nice to open his space for Jim's friends to organize his memorial. People came from different areas of the state and even from Olympia, Washington. The parking lot shows some of the motorcycles people chose to ride to celebrate Jim's accomplishments. In the event, I got to meet several of Jim's friends besides the ones I had met before, and I got to hear several stories about Jim from them. I did not record any of these conversations, but who knows? People may use this space to write about Jim. It was a nice afternoon at the Teepee Village. The Teepee Village has always been a place where folks who love motorcycles have a chance to get together. As I mentioned before, from here we used to launch the Teepee Two-Tower ride every year. Today, it remains a great location for people to spend the night in a legitimate teepee to hear the sounds of the small creek that runs by the property, and to be in the middle of a forest. It is a nice area for small events, get-togethers, and weddings not too far from Springfield and Eugene, Oregon. Back to Jim's memorial, I'll add to this video portions of another video that I had created 2 years ago when Doug, Carl, and Annie prepared a fundraiser for Jim Robb at the Oregon Vintage Motorcyclist Show. At that time, Jim was at the hospital recovering from a broken bone. In that video, I described what I knew about Jim at that time. Jim was also a storyteller, and in this video I have a clip when Jim tells the story of a time when he rode with Steve McQueen, and another about Bud Eakins, Steve McQueen's famous stunt rider. Every motorcycle has a story to tell. Usually it's about the people behind it. This video tells the story of the JMR Ducati 500cc vintage road racer. I'll set the context, describe the basics of this motorcycle, and introduce you to the people behind it. So here's a little context on this bike. This GMR was built in the 90s with 1960s racing specifications, components, and looks. To appreciate this motorcycle, you have to dig deep into a specific era of motorcycling history, to a time when road racing motorcycles were still being conceptualized and born in smaller shops by guys who built, worked, and raced their own motorcycles. This motorcycle's harmonious package, based on its unique frame design, its single-cylinder Ducati Desmo engine, with its period-appropriate components, and the unique engineering that brought engine and frame together, makes it a time capsule of this long-gone period. Although the JMR Ducati 500cc is an Oregon machine because it was built and raced here, its DNA is traced back to England, where the builder James M. Robb started his racing and builder career alongside great motorcycling builders and riders of the 60s. Its DNA is also traced back to Italy, from the time Doug Brown, the owner and engine builder, lived in Italy, connected with Italian vintage engine builders, and started this extensive and detailed research on single-cylinder Ducati Desmo engines. Jim and Doug share responsibility in keeping alive today and for the future an almost forgotten area of motorcycle design, performance, and riding. How did we get to Steve McQueen? The king of cool, I've heard.
King of cool, yeah, you're right on. In California, part of the reason I was there was I was going to take over building Rickman's, which was a kit bike, and they were using them in the desert. And McQueen had the attitude that it's a fabricated product, we can build it in the States. And he developed, or tried to, organize a company that built all the bodywork and the frame and everything for a motorcycle called the Mojave. I went motorcycling with him one whole day. And when we stopped for breakfast at the start of the day, there were two girls sitting in the back of the restaurant, and they were eyeing him suspiciously, and I was having a chat, and we were drinking coffee and one thing and another, and they suddenly realized who it was.
Yeah.
And it did all this elbow sort of thing, and before you knew it, we had a fan club descend on us.
Did you build a desert racer for him, for McQueen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one for Eakins?
Not Eakins, no. Eakins is so big-headed that he was some impossible. Bud was having his 4 o'clock Johnny Walker, and which I had to get from the liquor store, and he was sitting near the bench, and he casually went over to the bike, which by now had a center stand on it, and with the throttle, held onto the throttle, and gave it a casual kick through, rather like just to see whether there's compressions there or anything. And the bite bit him. I can't say anything else. It backfired. Poof! Came out of the carburetor, and he was next thing when the smoke cleared. He's laying on the floor yelling, "It cut my foot! Oh, I can't feel my foot! My poor foot!" Oh, he's carrying on like a 6-year-old. And the great movie stuntman laying on the floor, clutching his foot. And he did the great escape jump over the ditch.
I've been hearing about Jim Robb through my local riders community. He's a legend amongst us, giving great color to our little but strong community here in Oregon's South Willamette Valley. I actually saw him for the first time in 2009 when I participated in a local annual motorcycle event, the Tipi to Tower Ride. Jim Robb showed up to this event driving a machine he built himself, panel beating and all. This unique car, inspired by the already unique and very rare Cooper Sports from the 50s, was built by Jim Robb based on a 1968 Triumph Spitfire frame. This car already shows who Jim is. You can probably deduct already, Jim's work is unique. And to recognize the value of his work, you need to appreciate the history of custom cars and motorcycle building in England, especially from the 50s and 60s. In that Tipi to Tower event in 2009, I did not get to actually meet Jim. I met him only during the filming of this video in a hot summer day at his house in August of 2021. During this visit, I got to talk to Jim, hear his stories, and visit his shop. Well, that was it, friends. I hope this video made justice to the portion of Jim Robb's accomplishments I knew about, and that it offers the people who did not have a chance to come to his memorial to be part of it and to contribute with stories from him. Thank you.